Welcome back to the deep dive. We've explored some pretty intense books here, ones that really get under your skin, but today we're heading into a realm that's, well, a bit out there, even for us.
Out there, literally.
Yeah, we're talking about astral projection. Specifically, we're cracking open Astral Projection, a complete guide. Now, one of you reached out wanting us to really break down this whole concept. You're intrigued, but let's be honest, it can be a pretty dense topic, right? So, no worries, we're going to unpack it all.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that the guide doesn't dive straight into this mystical, super esoteric stuff right away.
Oh, really? Where does it start then?
It starts with this really grounded description of the astral realm. It calls it the mind net, the closest dimension to us, and says it subtly affects our everyday lives.
Hold on, mind net. That sounds a bit like, I don't know, sci-fi. What's that all about?
Well, think of it like this. It's a massive, invisible web of thoughts and energies created by, well, everyone, like a huge interconnected ocean of mental energy.
Okay, so all our thoughts, emotions, anxieties, they all feed into this mind net.
Exactly. And it's constantly shaping and reshaping itself according to this principle of like attracts like. It's how the guide explains the different layers or planes within the astral.
So, like, my stress about work deadlines is somehow contributing to the cosmic architecture of the astral realm.
In a way, yes. The guide suggests it all goes into this mind stuff that makes up the astral. And speaking of mind stuff, this brings us to dreams.
Ah, dreams, those nightly adventures and weirdness. So, is the guide saying they're more than just random brain firings?
It's saying that when we sleep, our subconscious mind basically taps into the astral dimension. It uses this mind stuff to create dream scenarios. It's almost like our subconscious is a filmmaker using the astral plane as its studio.
So, that dream I had about being chased by a giant rubber ducky, that was my subconscious playing director in the astral.
Maybe, yeah. The guide proposes that dreams are how our subconscious processes emotions and communicates with us.
Okay, that's kind of cool, actually. Now, if the astral's so close, how come we don't see it all the time? How is it different from our regular perception?
Well, for one, the guide talks about this thing called spherical vision in the astral. It's like having 360-degree vision, seeing everything around you, above, below, all at once.
Whoa, like some kind of panoramic view on steroids. But if we have that ability, why do we still seem to look ahead like we normally do when we project?
That's what the guide says. Even though our astral bodies don't have physical eyes, we still tend to focus our awareness in one direction, what we perceive as forward. Our brains are just so used to that way of seeing, it could even lead to seeing things reversed, like a mirror image.
Imagine looking around your house and everything's flipped. That's wild. The guide also mentions some other freaky sensory things like the Alice in Wonderland effect and melting hands. What's up with that?
So, the Alice in Wonderland effect is when things appear distorted in size or position. The guide thinks it happens because our brains are struggling to make sense of this 360-degree vision. You might see something in your peripheral vision that doesn't fit, and your subconscious tries to fill in the gaps.
Like a door suddenly appearing where there shouldn't be one. That's kind of unsettling. And what about the melting hands thing?
That's a strange one. The guide says that when you're close to the physical world in a projection, your mind might create a temporary body made of etheric matter, a sort of bridge between the physical and astral. If you focus too hard on a part of this body, like your hands, they might start to dissolve.
Wait, so if I look at my hands, they melt. But if I don't, they're fine.
Essentially, yeah. It's like your conscious mind can't sustain those detailed forms for too long.
Okay, that's definitely a different set of rules. Now, the guide also makes a distinction between OBEs, astral projection, and lucid dreaming. What's the breakdown there?
So an OBE, or out-of-body experience, is like a real-time projection, usually staying close to the physical. People who have them, sometimes during near-death experiences, are often aware of things happening around their body as they happen.
So it's like you're an invisible observer in your own life.
Yeah, kind of. The guide suggests it involves a lot of this etheric matter, keeping the projected body tethered to the physical. Astral projection, on the other hand, takes you further into the astral dimension, where time gets a bit wonky and reality is super flexible.
Time wonky, huh? Like an hour in the astral is 5 minutes here.
It can be like that, yeah. And then there's lucid dreaming, where you know you're dreaming and can sometimes control the dream. The guide says it's actually closer to astral projection than OBE because of this malleable reality and distorted time.
All right, so OBE is real time, and local, astral projection is a trip to a different dimension, and lucid dreaming is about awareness and control within the dream. Got it. Now, let's say someone wants to actually try this astral projection thing. What are the must-haves according to the guide?
Okay, so the guide lists 4 essentials. Total body relaxation while awake, complete focus, enough personal energy, and actively pushing for the astral body to separate. It really emphasizes this deep relaxation as the key to entering the trance state, which supposedly makes projection much easier.
Easier said than done, right? Relaxing your body but keeping your mind awake. How do you even start with that?
The guide suggests starting with simple training exercises. It recommends tensing and releasing different muscle groups to relax the body, actively thinking through your thoughts to manage them, and focusing on your breath to quiet the mind.
So it's like a two-pronged approach. Calm the body, train the mind. And what about this trance state? How do you know you're in it?
The guide describes it as a feeling of stillness, like you're in a bigger space. You might feel a buzzing or tingling, and your surroundings might seem different, kind of hazy. It even says you don't need to force a super deep trance at first. Just a feeling of heaviness can be enough to start trying to project.
Okay, so relax, quiet the mind, feel the heaviness. Got it. Now, the guide also talks about the energy body and chakras. How do those fit into astral projection?
Well, the guide says that when we sleep, our energy body, also called the etheric body, expands and recharges. The chakras, those energy centers, are how this energy flows. It suggests that even a little bit of conscious chakra stimulation can boost OBEs and lucid dreams because it gives your astral body more energy to work with.
And what happens when these chakras get activated? Does it feel like anything?
Yeah, the guide gives some specific examples. For instance, when the heart chakra is really going, it can feel like your heart's racing. With the throat chakra, it might feel like there's a lump in your throat. And the crown chakra, when it's fully open, is supposed to feel like 1,000 tiny warm fingers massaging your head.
1,000 warm fingers sounds much nicer than a racing heart. Let's talk about some specific techniques. The astral rope technique sounds pretty straightforward, maybe even a bit physical for something so ethereal.
Right. It's described as the main, more forceful way to separate your astral body. The idea is to imagine a strong rope hanging above you and to mentally pull yourself up it, hand over hand. But the key is to really feel it, not just picture it.
So I'm not just visualizing, I'm actually trying to feel the rope in my hands, the effort of climbing.
Exactly. And as you do that, you might feel a bit dizzy or lightheaded, which the guide says is a sign your astral body is loosening up. The important thing is to stay completely focused on the climbing, ignoring any distractions.
Got it. Focus is key. And for beginners, the guide has a simplified version, just starting the climbing as soon as you relax, right?
Yeah, the simple use of rope. Now, there's another technique that uses a poster, something called virtual reality projection. How cool is that?
A poster. How does that work?
It's about using your subconscious to build an astral world. You pick a poster you like, shine a light on it, and when you try to project, you just passively observe it. The guide says your subconscious will then create a matching astral world that you can step into. You can even customize it by adding little pictures to the poster.
Wow, so it's like making your own dream world based on a poster.
Pretty much. And get this, the guide even hints that if you have a strong emotional connection with someone who's passed away, their spirit might be drawn to the poster in the astral.
So I could potentially connect with a loved one in this poster-based astral world. That's a big claim.
It is. The guide presents it as a possibility, not a guarantee. It's based on the idea that your subconscious creates a thought form that could be animated by memory or even a spirit.
Okay, fascinating, but definitely something to approach with caution. Now, what about remembering these astral adventures when we come back? Any tips from the guide?
Absolutely. The guide says to take some quiet time right after waking up and try to recall the experience. Repeating key phrases or images from the experience, like "I saw a bluebird" or "I was floating," can help trigger your memory. And write everything down no matter how small, because these memories fade fast.
So it's like dream journaling, but for astral experiences. The guide also mentions the feeling of being stuck during projection. Any advice for that?
Yeah, it suggests things like changing your diet or focusing on opening any chakras that feel blocked. Now, let's talk about this mind split effect. It's a central concept in the guide's view of OBEs.
Mind split? That sounds intense. What's going on there?
Basically, the guide says that when you have an OBE, your consciousness splits into 2 identical parts. One stays in your body, the original, and the other becomes your projected double. Both have all your thoughts and memories.
So there's a conscious me in my body and another conscious me out there exploring. That's wild.
And the guide even says that if the me in the body becomes aware of the projected me, it can cause weird feedback, like seeing through 2 sets of eyes and having a mental conversation with yourself.
Whoa, that sounds seriously disorienting. So what exactly leaves the body when we project? Is it just this double?
It's a bit more complex than that.
Mm.
The guide mentions the etheric body as this subtle layer connected to the physical. It suggests that during projection, our waking consciousness might shift into the etheric body first, before fully separating into the astral.
So it's not just a clean break, but a kind of gradual shift through different energy layers. And what's the point of this mind split, according to the guide? It mentions something about universal law.
Right, the guide sees the mind split as a fundamental part of this universal law. It's how the mind reflects itself across different levels of reality. It says that our highest self is drawn to the source of all consciousness during this process, and our consciousness seeds, like the blueprints of our being, get updated.
So while we're exploring the astral, a part of us is also evolving at a higher level. That's pretty profound. And does the guide have any practical advice for beginners considering this duality?
It strongly recommends keeping initial projections super short, like 10 seconds, to help with coming back and remembering. It also suggests trying to mentally connect with your double to strengthen the memory.
10 seconds, that seems like barely a glimpse. But I guess the focus is on safety and remembering. Now, the guide also talks about challenges people might face, like this future wind thing. What's that about?
That's when you feel yourself being pulled through time and space during projection. The guide thinks it might be linked to your higher self, or maybe even clairvoyance.
Wow, a spontaneous time travel experience. And what about waking paralysis? That can be pretty scary.
The guide actually sees it as a good sign, a sign you're about to have an OBE. It says the mind split had already happened. It even suggests a trick to break the paralysis.
Yeah.
Focus on moving your big toe. And for other weird vibrations, the guide says to make sure you're getting enough sleep and see a doctor if it's really bothering you.
So those unsettling feelings might actually mean you're on the verge of something incredible. Interesting. The guide also talks about heavy exit sensations. What are those?
It describes them as intense vibrations or a feeling of resistance when your waking consciousness is trying to separate. It's like the energetic struggle of pulling your awake self out of the body. The guide says it happens more with intentional projection, and the key is to relax, do energy work, and use that rope technique.
So it's all about learning to ride the waves of these strange sensations. And what about fear? I mean, the idea of leaving your body can be pretty daunting.
The guide addresses that directly. It says that in the projected state, you're basically invulnerable. The biggest danger is fear itself, because it messes with your mind and blocks the projection. It also advises caution with unknown spirits and recommends sticking to prayer for protection.
So the astral might seem scary, but it's our own fear we need to conquer. The guide also mentions practical things like keeping your eyes closed and the link between OBEs and REM sleep.
Yes, it says closed eyes are key for inner focus, and it points out that most OBE attempts happen during REM sleep, which is also when lucid dreaming happens. So if OBE is tough, lucid dreaming might be a good alternative.
Makes sense. It's all about exploring different states of consciousness. Well, this complete guide to astral projection is definitely a deep dive. It lays out a framework for understanding OBEs, from the nature of the astral realm to specific techniques.
And what I find really compelling is its focus on practice and developing mental skills like relaxation and concentration, especially that astral rope technique. That seems like a really core practice.
For sure. So, listener, we hope this exploration has shed some light on astral projection as this guide presents it. It's a fascinating world, and this guide is just one perspective within the bigger picture of consciousness and reality.
And it begs the question, how do these ideas about the astral and projection fit with your own understanding of things?
Yeah.
What sparks your curiosity? Do you want to try the exercises?
Yeah.
Maybe explore other viewpoints? There's a whole universe of possibilities out there.